Okay, so I'm just gonna go through this scene one more time because I did a couple of corrections here that needed to be pointed out because they were so glaring in the final rough animation. So okay, so the first thing is that to be able to organize between my keys and my breakdowns, you'd have to label your keys. So in here I have my keys. So this is a key, this is a key, and then this is a key. So I labeled them A, B, and C and D and so on. But C is actually a breakdown, so I didn't circle that one. So it's breakdown from this pose to this pose. So a couple of things that I needed to fix for this shot, to correct for this shot, is this here. Look at the color here. When you're animating, you need to maintain the shape and the volume of your shapes. So here, your color changes shape drastically from one frame to the next, and this is why you shouldn't when you're doing tweening, when you're doing onion skinning, enable onion skin, after you're done drawing, you should turn it off. You should always turn that feature off and then check from frame to frame if your drawing is consistent from one frame to the next. As you can see here, even the jawline here changes drastically. You can see that from the distance from here to the edge of the jaw to the chin, that sort of displaced a little bit. So that needed to be fixed, and also the length of that part of that hair there, that also like drastically changed in length. So that needs to be consistent from one frame to the next because you don't want it to be jittery. So yeah, there are a couple of things more that needs to. Okay, so here and this part of the vest right here. So from this frame to this frame. So you should always judge the motion of the body on where that line is. So like, let's say here, this is the front of the vest. So the vest is a part of the upper body here. So the upper body moves in just a tiny bit of movement right there. But this line that shows the front of the vest, it jumps so much from one frame to the next, right? So you want it to be consistent as possible. And also here, okay, so just showing you the fixed version of that. So just a tiny movement right there, tiny movement. So I deleted the buttons so that you can focus on the line first, the shape, before working on the details. Alright, so here the color is the size of the color is fixed, and also the rotation from one frame to the next. So his body is rotating a little bit. So when his body rotates, that color should also rotate with it, right? And also the jaw here. So I tried to fix that deformation of the jaw right there. I tried to keep the volume of the face as close to the previous frame as possible without going overboard with the deformation. You can go overboard with deformations when you are doing squashing and stretching for like really fast takes, really fast movement. But in this one, it's supposed to be a really quite a slow motion. Not slow motion, but quite slow, not fast. So it's the deformations will be quite visible when you're playing this back. So you can see right there the jawline right there, like that extended out too much. And it's understandable that at this pose, like this pose, like it's supposed to be a breakdown pose. You can see here that like he has that orientation of his head. So in here, so just try to fix that sort of face right there, that jawline right there, because the jawline was a bit cut right there. So try to keep the volume of that face, right? So always go over the volume and try to keep that shape of that face. This is important. This is why you should do studies of your character, do sketches, lots of sketches of the same character in various poses, various angles, so that you will be able to draw it in different angles, and you will keep the shape intact, the shape of the character. Alright, so another thing is, so I'm just gonna first talk about the fixes first before the things that I added, like other stuff that I added. So in here, there is that jittery motion. You can see that from here on the elbow. You can see that it goes to that pose and then snaps back towards the back. So you can see that it goes towards the back and it changes volume. It changes shape right there, and then boom, it changes shape again. So that's something that you need to avoid, because that's very jittery. It will not look like it's the same arm as it animates. So you need to keep your arm consistent as you go through your motion. I mean, a lot of things can happen. Like an arm could change direction, change orientation. It could twist, but as much as possible, you want to keep the volume of that arm and also keep the shape. So and here, that's why it's very important to scrub from one frame to the next. Keep scrubbing so that you can tell if the arm has the same volume, even though it changes. Like here, for instance, here it changes orientation a little bit, but it needs to feel like it still has the same amount, the same volume, right? There's a bit of a something here that still needs to be fixed right there. You can see that changes shape a little bit. You can see that. Yeah. So that needs to be fixed too, because here, here, and here, that's fine because he changes pose, right? He crunches his body, like he stoops down. And then, but then this one here that's a massive change in shape right there. So that needs to be consistent. But here in the old one, that's even worse right there. You can that's like from one frame to the next, it's like it changes, like it just moves. Like you can see the whole pelvis moves, and then it changes shape again. So you need to be consistent with the shape. Even though it's being deformed, you need to think about how that shape is being deformed. Alright, so in here the body turns, so it turns in that direction. So you can see here, like here, it turns in that direction, right? So you can see that motion right there on the shoulder. So even the color has to turn, right? Has to turn. Things has to turn. The arm goes right there, right? This is why, and also it's very important to keep in mind to keep the shape. So as you're scrubbing, watch out for shapes that change. You can see here there's a little bit of a change right there. The length of the arm right here. There's it seems to keep the length of that arm, but it just seems to like curved a little bit. This is fine if it's like fast movement, but sometimes like if it's really like if it's slow movement, then you have to watch out for like those, like, you know, that change in curvature. Like if the hand is doing something, which is in this case it's not, it's just literally just moving along with the body, then it would have been fine if the hand was doing something, but it's not doing anything. So you need to watch out for anything that changes that doesn't make sense when it comes to the shape and the movement of the body. Alright, so in here, this shape of the face, that from the distance from the jaw to the chin, that's fine because he sort of like juts out his head a little bit, right? So he sort of like, you know, like juts out his chin a little bit with the movement in his neck right here. You can see that his neck is like stooped down a little bit. So that's fine, that direction. So you can see here within one. Okay, I'm just gonna check this one. You can see right here in the old one that was much different because that shape was so drastic. That change was so drastic right there. So here, okay, so I'm just gonna go through what I did here. So I fixed the drawing of the shape of the forehead. I'm sorry, because in here it looks like the forehead was kind of attached to the hair, and the hair would not be attached to that forehead. Like the forehead would go up towards, you know, the top of the head. Right. Alright, so just like, you know, just trying to think about, you know, anatomy and stuff. Like here, your forehead was like, you know, going over there. It's supposed to go towards the back of the head. Alright, so just like, you know, shape fixes right here. So you can see here you have that shape of your head, which is good. You have that shape that was, you know, initially designed. But then in here it's now, you know, it's now a different kind of shape. So it's very important to keep that shape that you had initially. So here, just keeping that shape consistent. Right here, so here there's a little bit of a squash here, but that's fine. It can't be avoided. Sometimes here it's a little bit stretched, and then there's a bit of a squash right here on the head. You can fix that. You can keep it consistent all throughout. You can, you know, select this and then just transform it. But the important thing is that you are keeping that shape of the head. Alright, so what other thing? So fixing the jittering of the shape of the arm, because you had that jitter right there. So as I scrub, right, it's like he's dancing. So okay. So we've discussed already the arm. It shouldn't be lifted. It should be just hovering over the table, just slightly being lifted by the shoulder. So we've discussed this already. I already talked about this. A little bit of a slight lift of the shoulder as he retracts his arm right there, and then the turn. All right. So a couple of things that I did add to this, which is, you know, which adds a lot of like, you know, believability to your animation. If you add some subtle things that exist in real life. So for example, in this shot, he's turning, right? So when he turns, what happens is, as humans, when we look in another direction, we tend to blink. So when we are going to look in another direction, our eyes tend to blink. So you can see that I added in this frame right here, between this key and this key, I added this blink frame. So you can see that. So that's just one frame, like this before this and then after. It's completely, it's completely gone, because when we blink it's very fast. So it doesn't need to be like, like a couple of frames. That would mean it would look like it's a slow blink. So here, because you would still add an in between here, so that's why I added like just one frame of blinking. So if I play that back, it looks like he just blinked normally. Right. Alright, so there goes the blinking. And the way to do that is very simple. All you have to do is just, okay, I'm just gonna go over and take this, this frame, this exact frame which I changed. And then what you're going to do is just erase the top of that eye and the eyelid, and just making sure that I leave a bit of the eye there, just so that I have an impression of, like, that there is an eye underneath there. Right. It's very easy because you already have a drawing of your eye. And then the next thing you want to do is just draw a line, right? And because you already have the drawing of the pupil in there, it'll look like he blinked really fast, and it didn't even like the camera didn't capture him like closing his eyes completely, because it was because blinking happens so fast. So it just gives you the impression that he blinked, right? Right. You can even take this further. It looks like he fell asleep here, so you can, like, thicken this a bit so that it looks like he did a blink. Right. Alright. So that's what I did here. Right. And you can see that I left so little of that pupil right there. Alright. Alright, so blinking, and then the next thing that needed to be added to this was, first before that, I'm just fixing the posing of that hand right there. So as it settles, right, like so, that pose, and then as he turns, it will drag a little bit. Alright, so it will drag a little bit behind, so that hand drags a little bit behind. So that's important, because that hand that arm is going in that direction, turning towards the back right there. Right. So it's important for it to look like it's dragging a little bit behind. Right. And this can happen in your breakdowns or your in-betweens, depending on the motion of the character. Right. So you will have to judge what happens. Right. So this is your original drawing. I just kept that because it stayed a little bit consistent with the previous ones. But there are a few things that need to be fixed, like for example the shape right here. So that needs to be fixed right there, because that changes drastically. I mean, like, it's a drastic change in direction, because like he's really turning at this point. He's turning so much, but you have to keep that shape right there of your vest. So this would have to be like going there, and then like if I'm gonna go over this, it would have to be like really going in that direction. Right. So just making changes to your drawing so that it stays consistent, that shape is consistent as it turns. Like it keeps that, sorry, it keeps that shape as it turns. Okay, probably even like more here. So you don't need to be like really precise. You keep scrubbing until you get that shape that gives you the impression that this vest is the same shape, it just turned. All right, so that's why that's why it's important to be loose as you are animating. Like use fast and fluid strokes so that, and don't get too caught up with trying to get a good exact shape. That's why it's very important when you were doing like your stroke exercises, your gesture drawing, it's very important to do strokes like this because it gives you fast results. You can undo it like really quickly and then do another one, and it will help you with creating shapes for your rough animation really quickly, right? So always use quick gestural strokes so that you can preview your animation right away. If it needs some fixing, just scrubbing it until you can see that it's good. It's already good deformation and keeping shape. Alright, so that's also what I did here. Here I added a breakdown because this was missing before. Like from this here, from this position to this position, you can almost call it almost call this a keyframe already, but this is actually just a breakdown from this pose to this pose. So this is another breakdown. So just from this breakdown to this keyframe, there needed to be another breakdown right here, because from that to that, well, you can in between, but how should the arm go from this pose to this pose, right? So that's why I added this one. And this one I did use onion skinning for this, but after a while I turned it off because onion skinning can only take you so far. So you would have to start scrubbing and then drawing again to get that pose that is exactly between this and this, this and this. So I'm going to show you the old one right here. So this. So you can see that. This. So the arm, you need to show the arm and the elbow where they're at between this frame and this frame. So there needs to be an arc there for the wrist and the elbow, how it's going to deform from this to this. And also the body, you can see right there, like you can see that that's quite a tiny deformation. Well, it's not too tiny, it's not a very big deformation. It's a very big movement, but there are some things that you cannot achieve with this using onion skinning, and that is the lines of the face from this pose to this pose, right? So don't rely on onion skinning too much. Just scrub from this drawing to this drawing and then draw what do you feel like the shape would be from between this drawing and this drawing? So that's why I created this. That's how I created this drawing. So relying on onion skinning first, and then afterwards you turn off onion skinning and then correct the shapes that are not working. As you can see here, like you can see that jaw right there juts out a little bit and then starts to turn and then turn completely. Alright, same thing with the height of, like, you know, his pose. You see that this one is he's stooped a little bit, and then here he's completely upright. So getting the transition from this pose to that pose, that transition of that pose, it's important to do scrubbing and get the exact lines where it should fall, so that you get that transition from this pose to this pose. With onion skinning, you can only go so much, and sometimes, or most of the time, what you get with onion skinning is that it's just very wonky. Sometimes it might not be, you know, the exact shape that you should be drawing. So always scrub first. I mean, scrub after turning off onion skinning, and then check if there are any parts, because there was a part right here where when I was doing onion skinning, so I enabled onion skinning right there. Alright, so you can see that there's the previous frame right there, and then there's the next frame right there, and you can see that that line is not exactly in the middle of those two lines. And the reason for that is that if I use onion skinning, when I used onion skinning, it was exactly in the middle. It was exactly in the middle of those two lines. And it didn't feel like I kept the motion of the body. It didn't feel like I kept the volume of the body. So I erased it, and then I turned off the onion skinning, and then I just scrubbed from one frame to the next. I just started scrubbing, and then I drew my lines, and then deleted if I made a mistake, because like, you know, when you scrub, you can tell if the line is working correctly. So if it's not working correctly, you can delete and then redo that line, and then scrub again. Alright, so the last thing, so what's important here was that you have given the breakdown for that pose to this pose. So with the hand, with the arc of the wrist right there, from this pose right here to this pose right here. Alright, so that arc right there, and then also that giving the idea of the deformation of that elbow, and also giving the idea of how he goes from this pose to this pose. Alright, so there's a bit of a mistake right here where this shape of the collar changes into this shape, and then this shape, and this is partly because this collar, the shape of the collar right here, is inconsistent with the key color of the key right here. So this is a keyframe. You can see that the color is a different shape. So that's something that needs to be fixed. Right, so from here it stays consistent, and then this one, the old one, is a different shape. So that needs to be fixed. Alright, so the last thing that needs to be addressed is the motion of the hair. Notice that in the original, the hair was a bit stiff, right? I mean, like, you know, there's no deformation in the hair. It's just the same shape as he turns. So just to add a little bit of a dynamism to this, the hair has a bit of a drag. You can see here that the hair, I added a bit of a drag to the hair. So the hair lags behind a little bit. So you can see that from the keyframes, the first key, then the breakdowns. You can see here, even so from the first here, first frame after the keyframe, it already lags behind. You can see that. So you can see that it's already lagging behind. Sorry. It's already lagging behind. And then it still lags a bit. You can see that shape right there. And then it starts to catch up. And then there's the key, right? So it lags and then catches up, gets to the key, and then for the turn, it lags again. You can see that there's 2 frames right there for two frames, 2 breakdowns, if you will. But there's these are like, you know, really just in between. So for these 2 frames, it lags behind a little bit. You can see that, and then it pops right back up. So it gives it a little bit of a, like, you know, kind of like a the impression that this is not a very stiff shape. It's dynamic. It's moving along with the body, but it has some dynamism to it. It's not just stiff. Right. Alright. Okay, and then settle down. Settle. Alright, so when you play this back, you can I'm going to show you the original one. So this has without the timing, so very fast. The hair is very stiff, rather stiff. He raises his elbows a bit too much, and then his shoulder a bit too much, and the elbow. And then there's all this jittery parts right here, like the arm, the front of the vest. It's so jittery, and also the lines on his pants right here, so jittery. And also the shape right here, it's not quite consistent. You can see that jitter right there. So it's not quite consistent, right? So going back. Alright, so now with the proper timing, you can see the hair falling back a little bit, and then when he turns, it also lags behind a little bit. Right? It lags behind and then snaps, lags behind and then snaps. So very, like, you know, very cartoony, but it's like, you know, we're creating a cartoon, we're creating an animation. So there has to be, like, you know, the believability of, like, you know, that movement of the hair, you know, lagging behind. Alright, so keeping the shape of the face and that shape of the color as it turns, and also the distance of the line on the vest as the body moves it, also the arm, keeping it consistent, the length and the shape. And then you can still add those wrinkles later on. And you can see that if you are able to visualize the movement of each part clearly, then you've succeeded with doing your rough animation, and then you can go into in-betweening. Right, so in here clearly you can see each key pose, and then you can see how it goes from one pose to another. Alright. Alright, so those are the things that need to be fixed for this shot. So I'm going to open up another the other one, which is alright, so this one. So in your old shot, this eye movement was taking too long. You did kind of like a slow out or a slow in from this keyframe to this keyframe. You had a lot of frames over here. So what it did, and the reason that I deleted some of those frames, so what it is that I deleted some of those frames, and the reason for that is that the eye, when it moves, it's a very quick movement. I know from your animation exercises that you were told that, you know, for movements you have to do like ease in or ease out for it to look natural, right? For like, you know, for your bounding ball and stuff like that, which it applies also for, you know, body movements, like, you know, for the arms, you know, jumping, you know, like leg movements, hair movements. But the eye is sort of like an exception, because the eye moves very, very quickly. When you're looking from one direction to the next, the eye moves very quickly. It's very, very fast. So you don't need to, like, you know, do a slow in or a slow out for the eyes, and also proper timing for the eyes. And you don't need to, like, you know, have like so many frames for an eye movement, because an eye movement happens so fast. Alright, so sometimes even, like, you know, when the body's moving slowly, or like the head is turning slowly, like, you know, even the eyes still move faster than, you know, than the head. So like this, and this comes from observation. So observe a lot of, like, you know, performance shots from, you know, like movies and animation. You'll notice that the eye moves really fast. So for this one, like, you know, he's looking from one direction to the next. So I deleted some frames here because it was taking too long to get from this pose to this pose for the eye. So I deleted a couple. So what I kept was this, the blink, and then this there. So that's just 3 frames in between these 2 keys. So the blink, so we have this, and then the blink. So the blink is just this frame, duplicated, and then created that blink, which I showed you already how to do. And then this, and then this. I'm not sure if I have the original one of this one. Okay, I don't have the original one. It's in hard drive, but I can show you back in school and show you the difference between the original one and this one. So if I play this back, he blinks and then looks to his left rather quickly. Well, it's not so quick. I didn't delete another frame, but if I was going to delete another frame, it would, you know, it would still hold up, because it would still look like he's looking in another direction. Like, see, it would still hold up. But now it's faster. I didn't want it to be that fast. But before that, it was really, really slow, because there were a lot of frames in here. So you were applying a slow in to this keyframe. So what happened was that as it approaches this keyframe, it's that pupil of the eye slowed down, which is kind of weird, because the eyes don't do that. The eyes don't slow down as it looks at something. It just, like, from one direction to the next. It just, like, it just quickly moves from one direction to the next. The eye. All right. All right. So that looks way more natural than the eye just slowing down as it arrives to that direction that it's supposed to. Alright. So the reason that I kept left this, like these 2 frames in here. It's just so that I could extend that duration if I'm turning, like looking to his left, because it was, if I deleted 1 here, it would be too fast. So this direction, blink, and then start moving, and then movement, and then settle. Right, so that's just actually just 2 frames of movement, and then it gets to the direction where it's supposed to, it gets to the spot where it's supposed to be. Alright, so you already got the proper timing for your eye movement. Alright. Okay. Alright, so there are a few things that I need to address with this one, because this one here, there are a lot of things that needs to be fixed with this one. So here, it's just, if you're going to move the shoulders, don't just move just the shoulders alone. Like here, do not move just, sorry, you shouldn't be moving just this part when you move the shoulders, right? What moves is the entire shoulder and this part of the arm right here. So this entire thing moves along with that part of the body. So if you remember your anatomy, this part of the body moves, and even the elbows move with the shoulders. So it raises up if your shoulders raise up, right? So this is very, very, yeah, weird. This movement right here, this right here, that's really weird. So I can tell that you just, like, you know, selected this area and then started moving it. So it's like it doesn't look natural. All right. Yeah, the shoulder is moving and the arm, the elbow is not moving along with it. That looks very unnatural. And also, you can see that, okay, I can see that here, the movement of that head is just a rotation. You just selected this head and then rotated it, which is not a very good thing to do if you're doing an animation like this. It makes it look like a puppet animation or a paper cut animation. So if you're going to like, you know, create a movement of the head, make sure to draw it. And the reason this looks so unlively is because, sorry, the reason that this looks so unlively is because you don't have, okay, here, you don't have that gesture. You don't have that rhythm, that gesture of the pose where he's like shrugging. Like, he's supposed to be shrugging. You don't have that gesture of a shrug. It just feels like he's like, it's just his shoulders is raised up. His shoulders are raised up a little bit, so like that, and then his shoulders are raised up. But his body doesn't reflect that pose. His entire body is not reflecting that pose. So if your shoulders are raised up, what does your body do? Remember, in your cartooning classes, exaggeration is important. Exaggerating helps clearly define the movement. Right, so that sort of movement, it's not very clear. Like, you did a lot of drawings here. You did a lot of, like, you know, this is a lot of frames, and it's not even like, you know, it's not even like unique frames. It's just pasted just copy paste it, right? So you can do this shot with a few keyframes, few original drawing keyframes, and you would save your ass so much time trying to fix, like, you know, these lines over here, trying to keep it consistent, like, you know, line work. You don't need to do that. What needs to be done is having clear poses. So get a pose that is like that. So from that, get a pose that is like that, and then like that. Exaggerate it, and then the next pose would be him doing that. So it's like, so we're gonna go through how we can fix this of having clear poses for this. So this one is a good clear pose. This needs to be a little bit clearer, so a bit more leaning would be good for him. So this is why it's important to, so a bit more leaning would be good for that pose. Right. This is why it's important to, when you're making a rough animation, it's always important to like do rough lines, strokes that are quick and fast, quick and not like, yeah, chicken scratchy and stuff. So quick and decisive, right? So that you could even, like, you know, when you are drawing that, the head would be in here, right? When that shoulder is like shrugged, the head dips down, like it's not shoulder level. It dips down a little bit because, like, you know, his shoulders are way up. So exaggerating, and also that elbow right there moves up a little bit with the shoulder, right? So having clear poses helps you a lot, and then here you have a lot of drawings, you have a lot of frames, and you have a lot of things to fix. Like, for example, here you didn't even, like, you know, do anything. Like, you just rotated that eyebrow, right? So it looks really weird. It's like a paper cut animation. It's like just moving paper cuts around. So that's not what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to achieve the illusion of movement. I'm trying to create the illusion of life, of a character moving, right? And there's also that jitter of the character right here as he does a thing with his head. I think it's a little bit too fast. I think it's going a little bit too fast, so proper timing would fix that. Alright, so that's it. The last scene that you have is actually, I think it's actually good. The last one that you did, I think it's this one. Alright, so this is actually pretty good. You can see that this, from this pose to this pose, that head turn is actually pretty good. And then you have that movement of the arm right there, that him leaning with his arm here, and then the elbow raising up as he turns. That's pretty good, actually. And then that shape, as the shape of the arm right there as he turns, that's actually pretty good. And keeping that level of that buttocks as he turns, and also the level of the head. It was actually pretty good. Right, that it just needs proper timing, and also like this happens too fast, so proper timing is good, and then you can go and start in betweening. Alright, so I want you to go over this. There's a file on the desktop that I left behind with notes on the frames that were fixed. So stuff like, you know, here, the elbow, the shape of the face, the hair. There are notes on the keyframes or the frames there, or the breakdowns that are like, you know, written with notes on what was changed and why it was changed. Alright, and then you can compare it with the old one so that you can apply it. You can see which one, what corrections were needed, and you can apply it to the rest of your rough animation, what you should look out for. Alright.